today I have probably not too long of a video, but a little video where I want to talk about some fragrances that are turning 30 years old this year, 2022. And some of these are, you know, probably considered kind of old smelling or like not modern smelling anymore, but some of these, very interestingly, are still wildly popular. And so it's just kind of fun to take a look back at some of these, you know, historical types of fragrances. I picked out 13 because it would be really hard to talk about 30 in one video. So I thought, let's do 13 that I feel like have some significance in the fragrance community or for that house. So let's go ahead and get started. These are in no particular order, just some fragrances that I want to discuss. Also, just like when I did my turning 20 in 2022, I will be using notes for this because many of these fragrances I have smelled, but in most cases, in fact, only one do I own, and most of them I haven't smelled in a long time. So I can't really tell you exactly what they smell like. All right, first up, let's talk about one from Issey Miyake. Now, Issey Miyake just died recently, but one fragrance that came out 30 years ago that was incredibly successful in the US is Issey Miyake's L'eau d'Issey. And this one was like a lotus and melon sort of combo. It had some florals like freesia and lily and peony. Things that, like, when I think back to the 90s, were kind of popular floral scents. Now, I never wore this one or, in fact, any Issey Miyake fragrance. I've smelled them, but I've never owned one. I've never worn one. But this one was very popular and it came out in 1992. The perfumer for L'eau d'Issey was Jacques Cavalier, who also made the next fragrance I want to talk about. And this one is one that's still very popular, especially amongst the men of Fragcom, it seems. And this comes from Cartier, and it's Pasha de Cartier. And Pasha de Cartier has like lavender mint sort of combo. I think there's some oak moss, although I'm sure it's probably been reformulated since 1992. And then I think like sandalwood, maybe some spice in there as well. But this one I have not smelled to my knowledge. Maybe I have in passing, but I have not smelled that I know of. But I have seen so many men on YouTube in the fragrance community and also Instagram talk about Pasha de Cartier. So it must be good. But anyway, that's another one that's 30 years old, and it's kind of funny because that one is like super popular currently. Next up is one from Jean Patou, and this is Sublime. Now, this was created by Jean Carelio, and in fact, this house, Jean Patou, I believe, is defunct. I think they don't make fragrances anymore. I could be wrong, but I believe that they're out of business entirely. So, you know, I think whatever's out there is just what's out there. I could be wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure they don't make fragrances anymore. But this one was an ylang ylang type fragrance, I think with like amber, orris, carnation, sandalwood, etc. But I've heard some good things. My friend Erin, I'll link her channel. She does actually probably more on TikTok, I feel like now, but I'll link her. But she recommended, I can't remember, I don't remember which one it is, but she recommended a Jean Patou to me that I need to try, but I don't think it was Sublime. I think it was a different one. But anyway, Sublime's turning 30 this year. Also one from Kenzo, the Kenzo Parfum de Tête. I think it's the one that looks like a little leaf. I'll put pictures of all these, by the way. I mean, at this point in the video, I'm sure you've noticed. But this one, I would be curious to try because it's Antoine Lie and also Jean-Claude Deville, I think, are the two perfumers. But I love Antoine Lie, so I'm curious to try this one. It is a green fragrance, so I think it's like kind of these like green notes with like florals. Again, I think it's like some of the ones that were really popular back then, like lily and peony, things like that. I think Narcissus was in there, which is also in another fragrance I'll talk about that I do own. But yeah, it sounds like an interesting combo because I do see like a lot of those florals that are present in this as ones that were quite popular in the early 90s, but at the same time, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'm misremembering, but I don't remember like a lot of overly green fragrances. So I'm curious to try this one. If you have tried the Kenzo Parfum de Tête, let me know. Leave me a comment. Giorgio Armani Gio by Francois Caron also came out this year. And Gio is actually Armani's nickname, which is where this fragrance gets its name. And so I assume Acqua di Gio is the same idea. It's like water of Gio. God, I am so stupid. I'm not stupid. I am ridiculous. That's a better word for it. Anyway, so this one I believe is like a white floral. So tuberose and gardenia I think were in here. And then like maybe some clove and I think peach too. So it sounds like mostly a white floral with maybe some like spicy fruity touches. Probably not my style, but I'm curious if anybody has tried that, what you thought of it. But I did think it was interesting to find out that Gio is actually just Giorgio Armani. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? Giorgio, Gio, duh. But I didn't know that was his nickname before kind of looking into this. So that one came out in 1992, as did one from Guerlain. It was Heritage. And this was a Jean-Paul Guerlain creation. And I still don't think I've smelled it. Isn't that ridiculous? I've smelled some of the like men's marketed fragrances from Guerlain, but not a lot. I really like and used to own the L'Homme Ideal, the one that's like the summery one, Cologne? I don't remember. It's the one that's discontinued that everybody likes. That one I liked a lot. And I like Abbey Rouge. I like that one a lot. That one actually I thought about buying myself a bottle, but I don't know, it sort of overlaps a tiny bit with Shalimar. A little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. But I do like that one and I do think women can pull it off. But anyway, so Heritage I have not smelled. And this is, from what I've read, a patchouli, ambery, woody combination with maybe some like lavender and oak moss. So it does sound like it might be a little bit more stereotypically masculine just upon reading the notes. But I would like to smell it at some point just because I am a fan of Guerlain. I have more Guerlain fragrances than anything else. Although Guerlain and Chanel are like really close. I have a lot of both of them. But I do like Guerlain a lot. So I'd be curious to try this one at some point. All right, next up is one that I feel like still gets some love, although I wouldn't say it's popular, but it gets some love, is Bulgari's Eau de Parfumée Thé Vert, the green tea one. And this is Jean-Claude Elena, so great perfumer. And this one is a tea fragrance, of course. I think it had like some cardamom, citrus in there, coriander, and then maybe like, I can't remember what else that said was in there. But this one I did try once and I did think it was quite nice. I'm not huge into tea fragrances, and when I do go for a tea fragrance, it usually tends to be more of a black tea kind of fragrance. But I did think this was quite nice. And I have seen some people like in the past few years talk about this fragrance. So I know that it still does get some love. I don't know that it's still being produced, but people definitely still enjoy it. So that one is the Eau Thé Vert from Bulgari. The first ever fragrance from Lalique came out in 1992, and I feel like Lalique has pumped out a lot of fragrances since then. But the very first one was simply called Lalique, and it was a Sophia Grosjean creation. And this one was jasmine and pear, blackberry, sandalwood, iris, and musk, I believe. And it came out, I think, like in the normal bottle, but also they had like these limited edition crystal bottles, which of course for Lalique, that's their thing, right? So it makes sense that they did their first one in these like fancy limited edition crystal bottles as well. Would be cool to own that, I suppose, but the fragrance itself, because it probably does sound like a white fruity floral, isn't probably my style. Although I kind of think I have smelled this. I feel like I have a friend who has a bottle of this that I've smelled like in real life somewhere, but I'm not positive. I think I have, but it was like maybe 10 years ago. Anyway, so Lalique's first fragrance, Lalique, came out in 1992, as did this one. This bottle, I love this bottle. The Ralph Lauren Safari for Men. I don't know who the perfumer is, but that bottle is nice. Like one of the best looking designer men's bottles, in my opinion, still to this day, you know, and it's 30 years old. So definitely a fan of that. This one is, I believe, a leather and sort of like lavender, oak moss, bergamot kind of thing here. It doesn't sound bad. I think I did try it once actually. And I'm pretty sure I thought it seemed too masculine leaning or stereotypically masculine, whatever that means, for my personal preferences, but I believe I did like it. However, that's been a few years at this point. So not 100% sure what I thought about it, but I know I didn't dislike it, and I do love the bottle. So that's the Ralph Lauren Safari for Men. Jo Malone was still early on in her venture into fragrances back in 1992. And in fact, she released one of her most popular for a long time, and the third release total of her collection, and that was Grapefruit, the Grapefruit cologne. And Grapefruit, of course, was created by Jo Malone because she was the perfumer for her own brand until she sold it. I believe when she was diagnosed with cancer is when she sold her brand. And now she has Jo Loves. So if you do want to get stuff that she makes herself, her brand Jo Loves, she does great stuff there. I especially like the Mango Thai Lime. I love that one. I have a bottle of that. And then she does do some stuff for Zara as well. I like Ebony Wood from Zara that she did. I like that one a lot too. Anyway, so Grapefruit obviously is a grapefruit-centric fragrance, as many of the Jo Malone fragrances are, like kind of focused on a specific note. But here it's paired with rosemary and vetiver, mint, and tangerine. So to me, this reads as like a grapefruit that would be, I mean, a grapefruit can go for anybody, but to me, like when I look at that, I'm like, okay, this sounds like something maybe guys would like even more than women, but I'm not positive on that. But definitely it's been a very popular one. I like quite a few fragrances from Jo Malone, but I will readily admit they don't last that long. However, you think about citrus fragrances in general, we're talking about the Grapefruit cologne, most citrus fragrances don't last either. So anyway, that one came out in 1992. And then this one is still like absolutely wildly popular and considered to be just an absolute standout fragrance. And at the time, it was released by Shiseido, and it is Feminite du Bois. This was created by Pierre Bourdon and Christopher Sheldrake, of course, who does a lot of, or has done tons of fragrances for Serge Lutens. And now Feminite du Bois is a fragrance in the Serge Lutens house and not Shiseido. However, I do believe Serge Lutens designed the Shiseido bottle, so I think Serge Lutens was involved in the original creation of Feminite du Bois in that he designed the bottle for it. Also, I think that the current version of Feminite du Bois is a little bit different from the Shiseido original version, but that's probably not necessarily because of the change of brand. It's probably because it was originally produced in the early 90s, and some things have changed about what you can and cannot do in regards to ingredients and fragrances. So I'm gonna guess, or like even just availability, like what's accessible in terms of use in a fragrance. So I'm gonna guess that probably any change that has occurred, although I have never smelled an old Shiseido formula, I would assume any change that has occurred is just because of general things that have happened in the world of fragrance that have caused many fragrances to change since the early 90s. Anyway, I have smelled Feminite du Bois. I do think it's a very nice fragrance. It's very well done. It is not, I mean, I don't dislike it. I do like this fragrance, but it wasn't something that I loved enough to buy a full bottle of. But this one is sort of like this fruity, woody kind of thing. It's cedar and plum, cinnamon, sandalwood, clove, honey. I think there's like supposed to be a wax note in here too. But I did, like I said, I did enjoy it. I just didn't like it enough to buy a bottle. Now, I'm not completely opposed to having a bottle of it at some point, and I definitely would like to test it again because it's been years since I've had a decant of it. But yeah, it's an incredibly popular fragrance. People love it. And if you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. Even if it is somewhat reformulated from the original, I know like currently the Serge Lutens version that's available people love, so definitely give it a try. All right, next up is a fragrance that changed the game, like totally changed the game of fragrances. And this comes from a house that, yeah, it's been sold and, you know, maybe hasn't done as much phenomenal in recent years since it was sold, but has done some amazing and iconic fragrances, and that is the house of Thierry Mugler, and Angel is the fragrance that came out in 1992. Now this was Olivier Cresp and Yves de Turin, I think is how you say that. But I if you don't think you've smelled Angel, you've smelled Angel. Because you couldn't go somewhere in the 90s or early 2000s even and not smell Angel. But even to this day, I still smell it fairly often. And I didn't used to like it as much, but now I really like it. I am definitely still more of an Alien girl, even though in general I'm not big on jasmine. The jasmine ambery woody bomb that is Alien. I mean, it's a bomb, especially if you get like an older formulation. That's super strong. But that is my jam. However, I have grown to really love Angel as well, especially some of the Angel flankers, both like present and discontinued. But this is like a patchouli chocolate fragrance. There's like honey and caramel, vanilla, tonka. So it's definitely a gourmand, but that patchouli is a very strong note in there as well. But this was really kind of considered the first gourmand fragrance that was ever produced. And so like I said, I mean, this changed the game. Obviously now gourmands are wildly popular, and all of them owe that to Thierry Mugler with his release of Angel. So that's pretty amazing. Angel was inducted into the Fifi Hall of Fame in 2007, I believe. And I want to say this might have been the first use of ethyl maltol in a fragrance as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, for those of you who know a lot more about that kind of stuff than I do, but I think it was the first use of ethyl maltol as well, in a fragrance, of course. So anyway, that was massive in 1992. But the last fragrance I want to talk about is the one that I currently own, and I owned when I was little as well, back in the 90s, and that is from Chloe, and it is Chloe Narcisse. I don't unfortunately know the perfumer on this one, but I still very much love this fragrance. It smells like this bottle that I have now, which is a vintage bottle. It hasn't been made in a long time, but you know, it's not from 1992, but it still smells exactly like how I remember this smelling in 1992 or 93 or 4, whenever I had it. It was early 90s when I had this. It's like fruity floral. So you have, obviously it's Narcissus that's in here, but it's like this sort of almost like a honeyed, spicy floral with some fruits. It has Toulouse balsam in here, which gives it maybe like a touch of almost like slight smokiness. I think it's geranium in here. Yeah, that's geranium. That's the other sort of floral note in here. It's a little bit woody, light touches of vanilla. But this is absolutely gorgeous. And I'm not even like a floral person, and perhaps I love this partially because of the nostalgia, but this is one of my very favorite floral dominant fragrances. I mean, this is floral dominant. It's definitely, like, no doubt about it, you're smelling florals. But yeah, love that fragrance. It's beautiful. But yeah, that's a great one as well. So those are the 13 fragrances that are turning 30 in 2022. Are there any others that you know of that I have left off this list? Obviously, there are several more. Of course, at the same time, there's nowhere close to as many released in 1992 as there are in 2022, because now it's like every day there's 30 new fragrances released. But definitely there are some I missed. So if there's any others that you think people should know about, leave a comment down below, let us know. Also, if you have any thoughts on the ones that I discussed, please let us know, because like I said, I haven't smelled a lot of these and would love to hear your thoughts on them. Anyway, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.